And we are back. Welcome to the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. This belief is perhaps best encapsulated by a quote from the great Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, nor where the doer of deeds could have done them better. No, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. With that being said, welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations. And Logan, dude, you are the man in the arena. You're doing the thing.
Giving it a shot.
Yeah, this is the voice of Logan Mize, country music artist with well north of 1 billion plays, streams of all of his music across all different platforms, and it is super cool to be with you today, man.
Man, thanks for coming out. I appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah, so John's here too, and well, if they're listening to the audio, they might not have seen you.
Fair enough.
But we'd been listening to your music and didn't really know who you were too much. You just kind of a name on a song. And one of our friends, Rachel, had mentioned, like, hey, he's from Kansas. I was like, there's no way. And so we reached out over DM and kind of got this set up. And it's super cool to be here, like, in person doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Thanks for being here.
So I want to kind of start off with, how did you get into country music or even just singing in general? Like, did you grow up doing that? Was it a family thing? Or how'd you get into it?
Man, so my mom kind of coerced me into piano lessons when I was 6 or 7. And I wasn't necessarily like raging to get into it, but I had it was like that compressor out there is going to go on and off, just so you know. It runs a liquor store next door. But I had this double disc Greatest Hits of Elton John album, and I listened to it over and over and over. I just couldn't stop listening to it. I loved all his songs. I loved it more than anything, music-wise. Mom was into like Aerosmith, Zeppelin, all that, but the Elton John double disc I couldn't get enough of. And so when she mentioned learning piano, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to try it. And I could barely get through piano lessons. It was just like learning, where the key, it just didn't interest me at all. So I stuck with it for like maybe 6 or 7 years and then kind of put it down. And then when I was maybe 16 or 17, I went to a concert at the Kansas Coliseum here, and it was Kenny Chesney and Phil Vassar and Sarah Evans. And, I saw the tour buses, and I was like, man, people can actually, like, go travel around the country and play music for a living. I mean, that sounds stupid to say, but the day before social media, like, you're sitting at home in a town of 2,000 people in Kansas. I grew up 40 minutes south of here in Clearwater. And it was like, you didn't realize, I guess, I didn't as a kid, that you could actually do this for a living. And so, and I'd always had I had notebooks full of poetry that I'd written. Not good poetry, but it was like more, very profane shit that you don't want your parents to read. And they did read it, and I got in trouble for it. But I kind of started putting it to music when I was about 17, and I wanted to learn guitar chords. So, I saw Tom Petty play, and I was like, God, how do you be that cool?
Right.
So that's when I started trying to figure out how to learn guitar chords and, be like Petty and Mellencamp and all that stuff. And so I put 4 chords together and immediately wrote 4 songs before I really knew any covers. And I put it on a little disc, back when you burnt CDs, and recorded it at a friend of mine's house and started passing it out just, on burnt CDs I bought from Best Buy in Wichita.
Really?
Yeah. And people kind of started going like, hey, this is cool. And then it started getting passed around. And I was going to school playing football at Southern Illinois and passed it around there. And that's when people started kind of going like, oh, you got something. And it gave me just enough confidence to not feel like a complete like hack, even though I was. The guitar was out of tune and everything. So it gave me just enough confidence. And when you're 19, 20 years old, it's easy to have more confidence than you need to have. I felt way more comfortable than I should have doing it. So I started going to Nashville and I started playing songwriter nights. Monday night in Nashville was only 3 hours from where I was going to school in Southern Illinois. And that's what started the whole thing. And Nashville introduced me to all the songwriters. I started learning names like Don Schlitz, Casey Beathard, Craig Wiseman, all the people that were writing all the big hits, not only in country music, but other genres too. Don Schlitz wrote, all the, Kenny Rogers stuff and Mary Chapin Carpenter. I just loved all those records. And so I just kind of tried to believe in myself and put blinders on and went straight forward and barreled into it.
So where in Southern Illinois were you going to school?
Carbondale. So Southern Illinois, Carbondale was like kind of close to the Kentucky border.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been through there, but
yeah,
that's...
So we're from Southern Illinois too. Like we're from Columbia, so we have SIUE, Southern Illinois, Edwardsville.
Edwardsville.
Yeah, that's right next
absolutely,
to us.
Yeah.
So I know that's kind of crazy. Small world.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved that area. I lived there for 2.5 years, and lived on and off campus in Carbondale, and fell in love with that area. And then if I never would have went to Southern Illinois, I never would have ended up in Nashville. I probably would have went to like New Braunfels, Texas, or something like that. But being that close to Nashville and being that close to a songwriter community, I was just, every chance I got, I was, escaping the college football life and going to Nashville.
So while you're in college, are you still burning CDs and handing them out, or had you picked up more momentum, or what did it look like for you?
I had that same one that I recorded here in Wichita, the same one, it had 4 songs on it, and I kept going on those 4 songs. And I'd play frat parties. I wasn't in a fraternity or anything like that, but I knew some frat guys, and so they'd let me come play their frat parties on the picnic table. I'd play the local bars there. There was a bar south of Carbondale, close to Anna, Illinois. I don't know if you know where that's at, called the Midland. I'd go play down there. I'd sit on the bar, no microphone, nothing. I'd just sit on the bar. And the owner there was really cool. He'd be like, "Everybody shut up." And he would let me sit on the bar, and I would just play, sit, stand, whatever, or go sit on the pool table and play songs. And people would get a semicircle of chairs and listen to my songs. And then if I had something new that I'd come up with outside of that 4-song deal, they'd let me play that too. So I would just go, and then if I knew a cover, I'd play that. And I just got a bug, man. I didn't necessarily love the attention. I was always nervous. I had to have a lot of drinks before I'd do it. But I love songs. I've always been a big, I feel like I'm always prowling for good songs.
So when you knew that you loved music, is that when you decided to go to Nashville full time, or what gave you the conviction? Because you didn't finish college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was it kind of just a whim, or did you have some real conviction behind it?
It was my junior year, and I was a redshirt freshman at Southern Illinois, so I actually went to Hutch for half a semester and then transferred to Southern Illinois midway through my freshman year. Got redshirted, and then kind of spent my redshirt freshman year and then the next year pretty dedicated to school and football. And then it was halfway through my junior year, sophomore year on the field, where I was any spare money I had, I was going to buy CDs at the local Blockbuster Music, or whatever they had in Carbondale, at Walmart, Target, wherever I could go. And then reading all the album credits and, going to record stores, buying old records and reading the album credits, trying to figure out who was who, trying to figure out who was making records, who was writing the songs. And then I just had the bug so bad I couldn't even sleep, and then I stopped going to class. I'd sit in my dorm room and learn more chords. I had chord charts hanging on the walls, and I was like, okay, how do you play an A7? How do you play a D minor? Whatever. And then it got to the point where I couldn't even make it to practice. I would just be sitting there learning new chords, writing new songs. And then I feel like, I'm doing a disservice to my teammates, and we were playing Western Michigan. It was the 3rd or 4th game of the season, my junior year, sophomore year on the field. And I got in for maybe 20 snaps against Western Michigan. Sorry, there goes that compressor again. And the whole time, all I could think about, I'm out there, I'm playing defensive line. I'm okay, let's fire off the ball and make a play. And I just felt like the whole time all I could think about was, what's my next song idea, and I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was helping my teammates out. So I wrote every single guy on the defensive line, maybe even the linebackers too. I wrote them all a letter, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm letting you down. I'm going to leave." And I quit mid-semester, and I didn't have the money to move to Nashville. So I came back here to Sedgwick County, and I started framing houses in Wichita to save up money to go to Nashville.
Oh my gosh. Were your parents supportive of this, or
no?
What the heck's going on?
Well, I mean, my parents were cool. My parents were cool. They were like, "Oh, he's being himself again,"
Yeah.
I think they were always worried. I just kind of always wanted to drift. I never really wanted to land on anything, and but I was like, no, this is the one thing I feel like I can really land on. I'm going to sink this. I'm going to do everything I can I was obsessed with it. I still am obsessed with songwriting, obsessed with production, and so I worked here 8 months. After about 8 months framing houses, I could still drive you by the addition I framed. I'm surprised it's not toppled over at this point. I was sick of myself and sick of not pursuing my dreams, and so I just up and packed my truck and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon one summer afternoon drove to Nashville and was there for 13 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Just like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just left. Didn't have any money. The one good thing I did in college, they offered a CDL driving class. You could learn how to drive a truck.
Right.
So I learned how to drive a truck, and so I just had a job wherever I went. You know, I was like, I don't have any money. Okay, cool. I'll get a truck driving job. And that's the one thing that saved me.
What was your major in college?
Oh, I mean, it switched every semester.
Yeah.
You know, drunk to, it was, it would go from general studies to law enforcement to landscape architecture.
Yeah, just everything.
I didn't know what I wanted to do besides write songs. Yeah.
So you land in Nashville. I mean, are you scared? Because I feel like I'd be out of my mind. You don't have really anything booked. You just packed up your truck and left.
No, I felt more free than I'd ever felt. I felt like, oh, finally I can breathe, you know? And I didn't have a plan, but I knew that I was there to do what I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. So I felt really good about it. And I got a truck driving job immediately. So I was, driving a semi-truck a dump truck rather, from 7 to 4 every day. Hauling sand for bricklayers mostly. Gravel, rock, whatever anybody needed for this construction area. And at 4 I would get off, and then I would go downtown to Nashville, and I'd just hit every songwriter's night I could. Start at 5 maybe, and then some nights I'd be done at 7, some nights I'd go till 2 a.m. Just hitting every single one of these bars I could hit that would have an open mic.
Oh my gosh. So what did it look like when the momentum started to pick up? Like, I'm sure it wasn't right away. Like, how long were you kind of just doing open mic nights?
Maybe like a year. And then I met a guy, and we kind of hit it off. He was from Louisiana. He's a Cajun dude. And we kind of decided to start a band. And so we rented a storage facility. And we just recruited people on Craigslist, honestly, is what we do. Like, we need a bass player, find this guy. Or we'd call people from our hometowns. And, well, I actually ended up getting 2 people from Kansas to move there, a guitar player and a drummer. And then he got a guy from Louisiana to move up and play another guitar. And then we found a Texas fiddle player on Craigslist, and she came. And it was a wild time. And then we'd rehearse in the storage unit. We didn't have any gigs, but through all our songs, between my songs and his songs, we probably had 30 songs, and we would just work them up hours every night. And we'd learn to play them live over and over and over and over again. Maybe a cover here and there. And then he introduced me to this duo. It was a guy and a girl, and they were song pluggers, which I didn't know what song pluggers were. Essentially, all the songs you hear on the radio, typically, publishers kind of house all the songs of the songwriters, and they hire song pluggers to go pitch these songs to George Strait or Blake Shelton or Tim McGraw, whatever. And they would kind of curate this list of songs, and he's like, I'm going to pay her X amount a month, and then she'll go pitch my songs to George Strait, whatever. I was like, that sounds crazy. It sounds like a scam to me. I didn't know what a song plugger or a publishing company was. And we went one day because he had a meeting. We were hungover. We'd spent all our money. It was a bad deal.
It's Nashville.
I'd quit my job, and we were kind of scrapping our money together to make rent, which we did, and we got evicted. But
we striking out.
We went down to this meeting with this girl, Amanda, and she was really cool. And she's like, hey, I'm working for this publisher. His name's Brett Jones. Brett had written some songs that I knew. Actually, one of the first songs I learned how to play in college when I was at Southern Illinois, called You Won't Ever Be Lonely by Andy Griggs. And so she took me into his office, and I saw the plaque on the wall. I was like, I know that song. I played that in college for chicks, And he's like, how'd that work out for you? Whatever. And so he's like, well, play me something you wrote. And so I played him a song. I didn't even know what I was doing in the publishing office. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what all this is, And so I played him a song, and he's like, what else you got? And so I was just going down the 4 songs in that CD that I played all 4 of them. I had a publishing deal by the end of the day, and he's like, you got to quit all your jobs and you got to write songs full time, but I'll pay you $16,000 a year just to write songs. And I was like, oh my God, I'm rich. Yeah, and so I wrote songs, and I wrote with him probably 3 days a week, and he taught me everything there is to know about songwriting. I mean, he's a great songwriter. He signed some of the greatest, songwriters in Nashville still today. Tony Lane. He found Tony Lane. I shouldn't say that. Tony Lane was, and still is, one of the greatest of all time. And David Lee from Texas. All those guys, Bobby Pinson, Anthony Smith, they all ran in this circle together. So they were in and out of the house. Dallas Davidson, Luke Bryan was always in and out of there. Billy Currington. So all these guys were I was exposed to it at 21 years old, and you just kind of like, it gets ingrained in you. And that gave me a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. I got dropped after a year. I was back to weed whacking, another skill that I had from high school. And so I was weed whacking ditches for about a year and a half on nothing, scraps. And then I ended up at Big Yellow Dog, which is a publishing company I'm still with. I've been with them since 2010. So
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So after you get this $16,000 a year gig writing songs, I feel like you're kind of like on the cusp, like you're on the way up. You can start to see maybe this is going to work out. After you get dropped, I can only imagine like how that must have felt. Why didn't you pack it in, move home, and do something normal?
I didn't care, man. And honestly, like, failures never bothered me. A lot of people get sour, a lot of people get beat up, and I've been through that a little bit. Like, when you really feel like, okay, I have something to offer, and it doesn't work out, that takes months to get over. But at the time, I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. I really knew in my heart, like, I'm still learning this. So I didn't feel ever like I got sideways with anybody. I didn't feel like anything ever bad happened to me. I felt like, oh, I've been fudging my way through this the whole time. So when I lost that first publishing deal, it was like, on to the next thing, and I walked up and down Music Row, every single publishing company with my little demo tapes. And I had more at that time. They were just like really raw recordings that I'd written in Nashville. Some demos that I'd done at studios, but I got turned down by every single publishing company on both sides of the street. So if you've been in Music Row, 16th and 17th Avenue,
yeah,
down, all the publishing companies are there. And then Berry Hill. I went through every single one of those publishing companies maybe 2-3 times, and they all said, no, come back when you have something better. And I loved it. I was like, yeah, all right, let's write something better. I'll go back to weed whacking ditches, and then I'll come back when I have another group of songs, And then finally I went to Big Yellow Dog. I think it was the 3rd or 4th time that I actually got let past the front. Like, there's a front office, like a reception area.
Yeah.
And they actually let me into the publisher's office. It was the 3rd or 4th time. And I walked in, and Carla Wallace, who runs the place, she still does, and she had her back turned to me like in a chair, like kind of in a movie. I mean, honestly, she had her back turned to me in the swivel chair, and I walk in, and the back of her head's just looking at, like, they had a big stereo. Mm-hmm. It was 2009. And she flips around, and she's like, been listening to your CD. It's like, yeah, what'd you think? And she goes, tell me how you're any different than Dierks Bentley. And I had some spiel that I made up on the spot that was bullshit, but it was like, well, you're just saying that because I'm not Southern. You're used to Southern country music. Dierks Bentley's from the West. He's from Arizona. It's just a little bit different flavor. I'm from Kansas, and I don't feel like you're giving me an honest shot because I'm not saying truck y'all, hee-haw, bullshit. And she's like, she got kind of offended, and she's like, well, let's listen again. And she played it, and then she's like, okay, this is actually, okay, here's a guitar. Can you play me a song? Just you play a song on the guitar. If somebody asked me to do that right now, I'd shit my pants. At the time, I had so much confidence as a 23-year-old at the time. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I played her a song on the guitar, and she's like, okay, I got to call my business partner. She called him over. That was at 10 o'clock in the morning, but 2 in the afternoon, I was signing papers.
Wow.
And ended up there. And that's the same one I've been with for 13, 14 years. So, crazy. Yeah.
Is that how that works usually? Like, singers go from place to place to place and just
It did back then. I think nowadays it's more like what's on TikTok and what's hot, and then you get a call from or a D. I don't know how it works today, to be honest with you. I feel like I was in the last group of people who did it the organic door to door place. There was maybe a few years that happened after that, but man, everything has changed so much now. It's like, what are people's TikTok numbers?
Yeah.
But yeah, just persistence.
So what was it? What does it mean to get signed by, like, with a record deal? Like, is that a salary plus royalties, or how does that actually work? I feel like most people outside of music business don't understand what that is.
Yeah, so Big Yellow Dog was just a publishing company at that point. So they just own all the rights to your writing.
Okay.
So what you're writing. And so I wrote with them for 5 years before I got my first actual record deal.
Okay.
And they helped me release like an album, like an independent album on their quasi label at the time in 2012. But then I got signed with Sony Records in 2015, and that was like a legitimate record deal,
Yeah.
where you have a full staff in a giant building where you walk in and everything you can picture, guys with a suit on that are telling you, well, I think you should do that. And I did that in 2015. I was at that label for two and a half years. It fizzled. There was a lot. I mean, this could be a 2-hour story, but I'll spare you the details. And then I went back to Big Yellow Dog, and that's where I released the Comeback Road album, the one you see on the wall. And that was just through Big Yellow Dog, my publishing company, that acted as my label. And then that got me signed to Atlantic Records in New York. And so signed with Atlantic on a single deal in New York for Better Off Gone, which is a song kind of people know it, but you might not know it, but that's a song that kind of got me going, you know, like outside of the Great Plains, you know.
Better Off Gone is one of my favorite songs. Better Off Gone, Grew Apart, and Albuquerque, and then you have one about I'll forget the name. But anyways, those four, those are the ones where I found you, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but like these songs are really good.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so, and then I did that single deal at Atlantic. There's so many stories in there I could tell you that are just kind of weird how I ended up where I'm at, but after that ended, then I kind of went back to Big Yellow Dog, and they've been acting as my label since 2019, 2020. So, yeah.
So being a full-time artist, what does that look like? Like, what is day-to-day? What is normal for you in a year?
It just depends on how heavy we're touring. You know, like 2019 was crazy because that's really like, so the Comeback Road album came out in 2017, and then the single Better Off Gone really didn't start hitting until like the end of 2018. So there was a year of lag time where it was like, is anything really going to pop off this record? So you think a single comes out and boom, you're off to the races. It didn't happen like that. And so that's when I put a song out first week, I don't even look to see how it's performing because I know that a year and a half from now, it could start getting traction. And that's what happened with Better Off Gone. And so end of 2018, it was like that's when Atlantic kind of stepped in and they're like, okay, we're going to push this thing up the charts. And then next thing you know, we're playing Germany and we're selling out in the UK and we're playing sold out West Coast tour. And then we're playing the East Coast and then we're back to the Midwest and then it's back to Germany, you know, and then you're really going. And that song was really popping. We were in like top 30 on country radio. It was streaming in the top 20 in the US and Canada. And then COVID happened, you know, and then it's like, it kind of just, all of our running around and crazy stuff kind of halted. So when you're touring like that, your day to day is like recovering from being gone and then doing your laundry and packing and going back. I'm still trying to figure out what being an artist looks like when you're not touring that heavily. But I still tour a lot, but it's mostly songwriting. It's mostly like, you know, and I hate to say it, but, you know, looking at, are we getting enough info out there that we have new music out, you know, stuff like that. But yeah.
So when you tour, I mean, where's the bus come from? Who's driving the bus? How far are you riding the bus? When do you fly? Like logistically, how do you decide all this and what's that look like?
Well, I got teams of people that I pay, like, so I have a management company.
Okay.
And so they kind of help out with like, okay, hey, you're doing this full band tour, you know, I got kind of lucky because there's a bus company 15 minutes from here.
Oh, nice.
In North Wichita called Village. And I didn't even know it. I'd lived here for 2 years, and I was leasing a bus from Granger Smith in Austin, Texas.
Oh my gosh.
And so Granger, and he was nicest guy in the world, right? He was leasing me a bus for like, I'm sure he didn't make a penny off of it. So we were in Granger's bus for it seemed like every tour we did for a year to 2 years, we were in Granger's, one of his old buses. And then it was like a couple Nashville buses, but then I figured out there was a bus company right here, and they're like a high-end bus company. Like Jamie Johnson uses them, Larry the Cable Guy, Maren Morris.
Larry the Cable Guy.
Like everybody's using them. Pat Benatar uses them, and they're right there. So I kind of reached out to him in over 2020, and they were like, yeah, so when you start touring again, we got you. And so I started using this bus company here. But yeah, you have people who like will organize your day-to-day, your kind of tours, if you want to pay them. I'm more independent, so I do a lot of the logistics on my own, and I'll sit here a lot of the times at my computer and, strategize where the bus is going to go, getting driver rooms, all that crap, just boring like business stuff. But yeah.
So you have a tour coming up. How do you decide where you're going to be playing at?
That's the thing, is like, people, you post something on Instagram, they're like, come to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'd love to come to Philadelphia. But I don't know the analytics like my management company does or my agent does at UTA in Nashville. So UTA's LA-based booking agency, and then there's a branch in Nashville, and that's where my guy is. And they look and they see, where are your streams? Where are you selling tickets? They can look at all that stuff and go, okay, I think we can get you into, I don't know, let's call it Jurgles in Pittsburgh. I'm just throwing shit at the wall. Yeah, we've played that. Okay, we can get you into Jurgles in Pittsburgh, and you can put 400 people in there. Okay, we're going to start there. That's when you're doing your Northeast run, and then we'll just kind of branch. We'll go to Rams Head in Baltimore, whatever. And so they are the ones sitting there like strategizing that stuff, and they'll get an offer from a club like, okay, we can do this guarantee, and so I kind of felt like I was being passive in that part of the game, like waiting for someone to throw offers at me. And so what I started doing is I put a link on my website, and I was like, if you want me to come play somewhere, fill out this form and put a number. I don't care what the number is. $2,000. You want me to come play acoustic in your shed? I'll do it. And so I have a small trailer, not the big bus trailer you see out back there, but just a small trailer. I'll put my piano in it. I'll put my guitar in it, put some merch in it, and I'll go play these sheds. And then you can go there and you can meet people, and you can be like, hey, we're trying to work this market. You play their little birthday party or whatever you're doing, but we want to go play the 500-seater down the road. Cool. We'll spread the word, and then you can tell your agent, hey, I think we can get at least half full in X, Y, and Z place in, Buffalo, New York. And so I started trying to supplement their analytics with my, just field research of, letting people book me at their barns and houses and whatever. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of just whatever you can drum up.
So then, going to Germany, UK International, what was that like? I'm sure it was a bunch of travel, a lot of fans. Like, is that surreal to you?
It was cool, man. The first night we played in Europe, or outside of the UK, we've been to the UK a good bit, but we went to Berlin and we opened for Keith Urban there.
Sweet.
Like just acoustic guitar.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was cool. It was really cool, and it was like a in the round thing. It was me and Lindsay L. and Lauren Jenkins, and so we played like acoustic songs, and then Keith came on and played a full band set after that. But it was really weird because at the time we had a song popping with Better Off Gone, so you had several thousand German folks in there, and they all knew every single word to Better Off Gone, and they're singing. I didn't even have to play.
Right.
They're just so excited because American country music is fairly new to Germany now. And so it was at the time when we went. And so it was really surreal. And then we were able to go from there and string together Munich and Hamburg and Cologne and gosh, what was the other place? I'm in Kulmbach. We played there. The Mercedes-Benz truck dealership in Kulmbach paid for our music video, and we got to go play a castle in Kulmbach, Germany. It was just great. It was, yeah, absolutely surreal.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned like Luke Bryan, you've got Granger Smith, you've got all these different people. What is it like getting to meet them and to have these interactions with them? Because those are like really big names, and that must feel like progress. Like you're making your way up that list, and you definitely have.
You don't ever want to like bank like your progress on the friends you have, right? Like,
right.
And I'm such in my own world, and not in a narcissistic way. I don't want to bug people. And so, like, if I make friends, like, for instance, Granger is somebody who's been over the top nice to me. He's more times than he had to have been. Always reached out, you know. I was his first podcast when they started Yee Radio,
yeah.
You know, and they always play my stuff on Yee Radio, but I don't ever want to bug somebody. I'm just like, I don't want to get in their way and feel like I'm trying to climb, you know, stair step my way over the top of people.
Yeah, you don't want to use them.
Right. And so it's cool to meet other people that have had that kind of success, and I've not mastered the art of like becoming their friend and just, you know, being in their corner. But it's always cool. Like Dierks Bentley was one who was just from the get-go was always like super supportive. You know, he would, you know, every time that we'd be open for Dierks, he'd come out and watch our show. And then from like really early, like 2012, he came out and he was like, "Hey man, the Sunflower song that you played, that was really good. That's your best work yet. Keep going. Keep doing that." It's like, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to come tell me anything. You could have sat on your bus, you know. So man, it's really cool, and I try to remember that when there's other young artists that, you know, might think I'm somebody or whatever. It's like, go give them a compliment. Like, find something you really like about them. Find something authentic and genuine, and go tell them, because that is so huge, man. Like, you forget how much those little like words of affirmation from somebody who you look up to, you forget how far that can carry you.
Well, it's that encouragement. Like you mentioned, you had all the times where you got dropped or things didn't work out. I could think when I was starting the podcast a couple of years ago, and it was like when you're really questioning what you're doing and you're maybe not having success, and someone says something nice that you respect, it changes everything. Like that's really kind of, it pulls you through.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because, you know, when you don't get that, you might think, like, oh, they thought I sucked. Oh, what did I screw up? You know? But that one little sentence of, like, hey, man, you crushed it tonight. Or, hey, I really like this song on this record. Or whatever. It's like, you do? You know, it's hard to believe.
You're like, I don't suck?
Yeah. And you go out and open up for other people, you know, and they don't say anything. I'm sure Hank Jr. doesn't know me from Adam, but I've opened for him like 8 times. You know, and he probably didn't even see the show. But, well, not that he has to, but let's just say Hank Jr. came out and said, hey man, what's that last song you played? I really like that. Dude, I could have lived off that for a year.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
That confidence. And that changes everything too, because when you show up with confidence, I mean, like, it's contagious.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. We had a couple people, I did an Instagram poll earlier for people to ask questions. So I'm going to pull up just a couple of them to ask you here.
Sure.
I think it was pretty cool. You had some good responses to it for sure.
Yeah. All right. First one. Have you ever had a moment that made you stop for a second and think, did this really just happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of those. Grand Ole Opry for sure, both times. Getting asked to play the Opry was crazy. And then we played it one time with Emmylou Harris, and then we're like backstage, and like Emmylou was coming up and taking pictures with my dad, and that was crazy. And my kids are like photobombing in the background. That was cool. Leanne Rhymes asked me to go to, my first time in Europe was with Leanne. She asked me to come do an acoustic show with her.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got to do Scotland and all of, well, most of the UK with Leanne, and got to go out acoustic. And then the very last show I did with her, I can't remember, it might have been in Birmingham or I think it was Birmingham, and I walked off stage and she met me at the side stage, and she's like, "You're doing so good," and then she grabbed me by the arm and she walked me out on stage and in front of the sold out like Symphony Arena, and she's like, "Hey, this is Logan. Can we get a big round of applause? He's been opening for me this whole tour." And it was just like, you didn't have to do that. That was very surreal. I'm like in England and people are screaming songs that I wrote, here in small town Kansas. It was, those moments are crazy.
I can't even imagine. What's the most amount of people you've played in front of?
Most amount of people, maybe Stagecoach, California, or I'm trying to think. We did one in Maryland with Eric Church, was pretty big. I think probably we played an early slot in Stagecoach, but I think there was still probably 40,000 people there.
Holy
dude!
cow.
What is that like with 40,000 people looking at you?
When they don't know your songs, it's crazy because you're on a jumbotron, on both sides, and you're playing, and you're like, I hope my guitar's not out of tune. I hope I'm not singing out of pitch. They don't know the song.
Like, why are they not singing along right now?
Right. Yeah, that's always nerve-wracking. But man, it's the bigger crowds are more fun. You have more freedom to kind of like make some mistakes that in front of a smaller crowd, they're going to pick up every mistake you make.
Do you have anything that you do to like calm your nerves, or do you even get nervous when you perform anymore?
I always get nervous. I don't think there's anything I can do to not get nervous. But the best way I ever heard it said was like, I think Tom Petty said it. He's like, if you don't get nervous before you go on stage and play, there's something not plugged in, and it's probably time to hang it up. Dude, I always get nervous, and like sometimes uncontrollably so, where I'm like, I don't think I can play the show, man. I don't think I can do it. What am I going to do? I got to go to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face. Like, do I got to take a shot of Maker's Mark? What do I need to do here? Drink some tequila? That drinking is never the answer.
Except when you're nervous. You gotta play the show.
Yeah, drinking is never the answer, but a nice shot of tequila really takes the edge off.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm always nervous.
So, oh shoot, I just dropped what I was going to say. We'll go back to another question. I'm sure I'll remember in a minute. What did you think? Okay, so we had a buddy who went to your one of your more recent concerts. He wants to know, what did you think of Jewel, Kansas?
Jewel, Kansas?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a blast. Yeah, we went out. So this is one of the submissions I allow on the website where people can submit to have a show, a private show. Doesn't have to be private, but like coming to my small town bar in Jewel, Kansas, someplace that my agency would never put me. They don't even know that place exists. And I love going to the small towns in rural America. I don't care what state or Canada, whatever. It's like there are so many places off the beaten path that your agency's never going to book you. And so all these people are having to, okay, well, Jewel, Kansas, the closest concert is probably going to be Lincoln, Nebraska, or Omaha, or Denver. There's no one playing out there, And so the cool thing with the online submission is that you can go hit these untouched areas and play to people that otherwise would have to drive hours to see you. And that I just bring guitars and I bring a piano, no musicians besides myself. And I think we had 500-600 people in a 300 cap room, and it was like insane. Wow. And everybody was smoked. I mean, it's not about people being drunk. That's not what I'm saying. But like everybody was there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. Jewel was awesome. It was like so far the highlight of my solo acoustic tour.
Were they singing all the words with you?
Oh yeah, you could just stop singing and playing, and they'd sing it right back to you.
Oh, that's such a good time.
It was great.
Do you have any like close concerts coming up?
We have May 18th in Wichita at the Wave.
Okay.
And then we have Manhattan in May, Ralston, Nebraska, May 4th, Fort Smith, Arkansas, May 5th, Columbia, Missouri on the 6th. That's about the closest. And there's a Hays, Kansas date sometime maybe May 10th.
Yeah.
Like that.
We need to get out to one of them.
Yeah.
That'd be a good time.
We'd love anytime. You guys let me know.
Okay.
Jump on the bus, come hang, get a pre-show tequila, whatever.
Dude.
Help calm my nerves.
Hey, I'm
There
down.
you go.
That's what I was going to ask. We were talking about the nerves. Have you ever actually had to cancel a show because you were so nervous?
I never had to cancel a show because I was so nervous, but I have absolutely destroyed one of my own shows because I was so nervous.
Oh, man.
And that's the worst feeling. So my uncle Billy Mize, he was the godfather of the Bakersfield sound. So he, Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, all those guys, that started the Bakersfield Sound. My Uncle Billy was actually the guy that kind of pioneered that whole thing.
Really?
Yeah. And then he ended up playing. He kind of went off the rails. 2 of his sons died. It's a really sad story. There's a documentary about him called Billy Mize and the Bakersfield Sound. My cousin Joe Saunders made. But he ended up being Merle's steel player for 17 years. And so the documentary is crazy, but I got to play his 80th birthday party at the Buck Owens Crystal Palace in Bakersfield, and I made it through that. I drank quite a bit before, but Merle Haggard was sitting at the table right in front of where I played, and I had to get up and play a song of Billy's. And before we went on stage, they put a video wall up, and they said, "What's your favorite country song of all time?" Somebody interviewing him said, Merle Haggard was like, "I think one of my favorite country songs of all time was Who Will Buy the Wine by Billy Mize."
Oh, no.
And then it cut off, and then they go, "And here to sing Who Will Buy the Wine by Billy Mize is his nephew, Logan Mize." And I was shitting my pants all the way to the stage, and I got up there, and I was able to play it. My dad and I were drinking beers at the table, and I was like, "Here we go." So I went back. Will Hogue asked me to go on tour with him on the West Coast, and it was my first or second time back at the Crystal Palace in Bakersfield. And for whatever reason, we had this long talk about my uncle and the Bakersfield Sound, and I worked myself up into a tizzy, like, "Oh my God, I'm not worthy of being here. Like, I can't believe, like, I'm part of this thing that's historic." And for whatever reason, I got out on stage, solo acoustic at the Crystal Palace, and I froze up. Like, I got so nervous, I couldn't even hit a note, and I had to stop the show, and I kind of sat there, and I was like, just give me a second, and I sat there, and some really nice guy, some big burly guy with a beard, came walking out. He's like, "Just take this, you'll be fine." Gave me a shot of Jack Daniels. "Thank you so much, man. I'm sorry. I normally don't do this, but man, I got worked up. I couldn't even play the show."
Wow. So how did the fans react whenever that kind of happened?
I think they were confused. I think they were like, "What's going on?" But I was like, "Man, there's so much history here, and there's just so much going on in my head. I couldn't I couldn't even think straight, And but I was able to pull off the rest of the show. And Will Hogue was sitting in the balcony, like, watching, and he's like, "It's all right, man. That shit happens, and it's fine. You'll get past it." So
that's gotta feel good that he said that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Have you heard of Bailey Zimmerman, country artist?
Yeah.
So he had recently a concert that didn't go so well for him, and the fans were relentless going after him. And I was wondering, the fans are obviously there for a good time, but as an artist, you can't really do much about that. Like, sometimes you just have an off night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much out of your control. Like, if you don't have a good front of house sound engineer, like, you could pull off the perfect show. And you got cans on like this, they fit in your ear. You can go up there and play a great show and walk off stage high-fiving your bandmates. And then somebody goes, "Dude, that was bad." You're like, "What?" And then you hear something back that somebody recorded from out in front, and the sound guy has just butchered your sound, So the number one most important thing I've kind of learned is, like, when you're going to hire sound people to run sound for your show, you got to hire somebody that knows what the hell they're doing, because they can take a perfect show and they can butcher it for your audience, and then they walk away going, "They sucked."
Yeah.
So what does, like, a sound guy actually do? Is it have an audio board, or, like, what does that job entail?
Yeah, so, like, I bring my own soundboard. I have an M32, which is pretty small. It's not like a fancy anything. It'd be like not bottom of the barrel, but it's like pretty humble soundboard. But we have all of our channels and inputs on there. And, we have 30, I think we max it out at 32. So you have all the drum mics. You got 7, 8 drum mics. You got the vocal mic, piano, guitar, everything. And, like, getting that perfect balance of vocals sitting up front,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bass and the drums. And if, like, let's say they're like, "Oh, I'm getting too much bottom end feedback," they pull all the bottom end out, then it's just all guitar and vocal, or the vocal's buried behind a guitar. They can totally screw your whole show.
That's a lot to handle, though.
It's a lot. So you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing. And we've been lucky enough that my buddy Troy Milner, who runs sound for Bruce Springsteen has been out with us this past year, but he's back out with Bruce this year, so we're starting from scratch, looking for a front of house. So if there's any front of house engineers out there, we need you.
Hey, John, that's your department.
That's me. That's all me.
We sat here for like 10 minutes before the episode started trying to get the audio all set up, and we're kind of looking at each other like, do you know audio? Do you know audio? None of us know audio.
Yeah, no, me included.
All right, back to the questions. There's one more I think that I wanted to pull up.
The scotch is fantastic.
Oh, do you need more?
No, I'm
more.
good. I'm still finishing this one up. But it's good, though.
Yeah, good.
It's
I'm glad
really
you dig
good.
it. I love that. Balvenie is great. We're drinking Balvenie Scotch. Yeah, let's get that sponsorship going.
So the question was, why did you end up heading back from Nashville to Kansas?
Oh, good question. Man, it's so we kind of jumped around from place to place. My wife and I met my wife in 2009 in Nashville. She's from Antebellum, where we're at right now, and we never met when we lived here, but we had been in several close run-ins over the years growing up. Met her in Nashville, and when we first started dating, one of the things we said was like, man, how cool would it be to be like, successful in music and then move back to where we grew up and raise a family there. And it was kind of a fleeting thought, maybe like a casual conversation that happened 2 or 3 times. And then there was one day where my daughter was going to preschool in Brentwood, 20 minutes north of where we lived, and my son was going to kindergarten another 20 minutes south of where we lived. So there's a 40-minute difference, and traffic's terrible. Yeah. And I was out on tour with my friend Cam, and my mom had called me in the morning, and she's like, I just got diagnosed with colon cancer.
No.
It's whatever. And we were just like maxed out with driving kids. And we're like, should we just raise our kids in Kansas? And I went and talked to Carla Wallace, who runs Big Yellow Dog, and who's been my publisher we've talked about her a little bit in the show. And she's like, why don't you just move back to Kansas? I don't care. I'll keep you. We're going to keep making records. We're going to keep, doing our thing. And I was like, really? You think it'd be cool? She's like, yeah, do your thing. Live your life. So I went home and told Jill, and she's like, all right. We left that weekend, and we came back.
That is so quick.
Yeah,
left our house in Nashville, sitting there, and then my brother-in-law was my merch manager at the time, so he was living in Nashville. I just, hey, move into the house, take care of it. We moved back here, moved in with my wife's parents, just a couple miles south of here. Just tried out, enrolled our son here in school in kindergarten, daughter in preschool, and tried it out for 6 months, and we're like, man, this is way better pace of life. There's no traffic.
Yeah.
We're 2 minutes. If anything happens, we're 2 minutes from everything.
Yeah.
And by the end of 6 months, we sold our house and started building here, and it was just it made sense. And I was also able to be with my mom in the last few years of her life and be close. And now I get to play golf with my dad.
Yeah.
And that never would have happened if I would have stayed in Nashville. We were so far away. And there's been a lot of family, like, people passing and graduations and marriages and weddings and just stuff that you're going to miss out on.
It's such a different style of life. Like John and I were just in Nashville last week. We did an interview with former NFL football player, and then we would go out to the bars in Nashville, and like it's a lot of fun, but it takes forever to get downtown. It's so busy. There's so much going on.
$40 to park.
Oh yeah, seriously. And Kansas is such a slower lifestyle, which that's good if that's what you like, but it's like a much better pace in my opinion.
So much slower. I golfed this morning with my dad. We've been talking about it. And I had to drive back here to do the podcast, and it was like I took dirt roads the whole way. I was kind of cruising, listening to a little podcast, and it was like, God, if I was in Nashville, I'd be fighting traffic the whole way, like white knuckling, trying to get back in time.
Yeah.
It was just, I love it here, and yeah, it's March, and there's 30-mile-an-hour wind, which sucks. But come April, it's going to be beautiful, and we'll be fine.
Well, this place Andale is far more country than Nashville. Like we were driving, and there was the pavement in front of us, and all of a sudden it was dirt road, and I was like, John, this is BFE Kansas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're getting out here now, and it's and this is pretty civilized compared to most of Kansas. We're close enough to Wichita and close enough to Hutchinson, but yeah, it's perfect, man. It's population 900. There's a bar across the street, which, by the way, if you guys are hungry for dinner, they're open at 5. I don't know what time it is, but
It's 5:09, man.
They got a good steak over there.
Ooh.
I'll have to pop over.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
That's a good time. Okay, I had another question. This was just kind of off the cuff that we were talking about on the way over. So you're married, you've got a family, right? What is it like writing songs that are, a lot of them are about like heartbreak and very like serious like relationship stuff? Well, you've got a family and it's like a much different situation.
Well, songwriting wise, you grow up and you go through like all the like angst of teenage heartbreak and all that stuff lingers, man. And if my wife writes a breakup song, it's like, yeah, you've lived it, and it's so relatable. People seem to dig it, and it's the easiest thing. If I started writing songs about my wife and I got in a fight over the dirty socks on the floor, my kids' homework's overdue because I didn't help them finish it, our mortgage is, higher than we wanted it to be, like all that. It's just so simple is better.
Yeah.
Simple is always better. So it's so easy to draw off emotions that are raw and real and everybody can relate to. Everybody's been through it. And, you dig too much into, the grown up. And I think a lot, sorry, I just snapped a rubber band. I think the grown up, like being a dad, being a husband of 13 years now, that stuff shows up a lot more on this new record that's about to come out, for sure. But it's so much more tricky to do. It's a lot easier to just draw on, like, late teen, early 20s emotion of like the breakup and also, every time, you get in a fight with your spouse, it's like those things come right back up. It's easy to draw on those.
So when you write Grew Apart and Better Off Gone, I feel like those are probably my two favorite songs to this point.
I gotta stop you, and I didn't write either of those songs.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on that if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so as a songwriter, I grew up thinking, you have to write all your own songs.
Right.
And when I signed at Sony Records, I got paired together with Paul Worley, kind of on my own accord. But Paul Worley's a legendary producer in Nashville. He produced the Dixie Chicks. He produced Big and Rich. He produced, countless stuff that you've heard. Legendary producer. And he's like, hey, man, you got to start writing all your own songs. And I was like, why would I do that? He's like, because that's not your strength. Your strength is you're a communicator.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, your strength isn't even as a singer. He's like, you can sing pretty good. And you can play guitar pretty good. And you can write pretty good. But what your strength is that you can take anything and you can emote really well, better than a lot of artists I've worked with, and that was a huge compliment. It's like, what do I do with that information? He's like, find the best songs. He's like, try to write your whole record, and then go look for songs that beat your entire record.
Wow.
So I started doing that, and I would be like, okay, record's done. I wrote the whole thing. He's like, now go look for songs. And so I started doing that and taking them seriously. And I would get through the recording process and be like, I only have 4 songs left I wrote because I wrote better songs. Because the best songwriters in the world are in Nashville, Tennessee, and they're writing every day. And they're not making their own records. They're literally writing for artists. And I'm an artist. Why am I not taking advantage of this?
Yeah.
And you walk up to him and you're like, hey, man, I love this song that you wrote. Somebody to thank. And he's like, please record. Not that he fucking needs it.
Yeah.
Josh Keir has written countless hits for Carrie Underwood, Luke Bryan, whatever. And he goes, please, I would love you to have this song. And you're like, really? You don't care? No, I would love you to sing it.
Wow.
And then I go in the studio and I'm like, damn, I can pull this off. And so that's my biggest strength. And I've kind of figured that out over the years. Is like, there's so many areas I feel not confident in, things I feel like I haven't quite mastered. That's the one area where, like, if I go into a studio in front of a microphone, any song that I believe in, I feel like I'm probably going to be able to do it better than the next guy. And that's been my one strength. So Better Off Gone was that song, Grew Apart was that song, and they were both written by Donovan Woods.
I had no idea. I always figured the artist wrote the songs. That makes a lot of sense.
Usually, I mean, like, I try to write most of my songs.
Yeah.
But man, if there's a song that beats all the songs I wrote, I'm not going to hesitate to go sing it.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I guess back to my question though, regardless if you wrote the song or not, once you released it, you sang it, you knew that, like, man, I got this message across really well. In your head, did you know, man, this is going to blow up, this is going to be a big hit? No. Or when you release, you have no idea? It's just kind of...
No, I wrote Donovan Woods a letter after I recorded Better Off Gone. And I was like, hey, man, I know I'm like kind of a more of an unknown, like, young artist. You probably want a bigger cut. I understand that. I was like, but I'm going to do everything in my power. And I did, to make this song a hit for you. I didn't feel that it was going to be a hit. I just believed in it. I heard it back and I was like, man, this guy sounds like he believes this. And he lived it, you know? And so I wrote that letter to him. And then, of course, you know, that was the song that kind of took off and made waves and got my career going for the most part. And so from there, it was like, I feel like I developed a relationship with him where he's like, I'm going to send you another song. So he sent me Grew Apart. Well, now it's about to be my second gold single. So he just sent me 2 more, and I have 2 more Donovan Woods songs coming out in the next upcoming project.
Wow.
And
that's exciting.
Nothing against Donovan Woods. I love Donovan Woods. I think he's one of the greatest songwriters in the game right now. But I hope my songs beat his on the next record. You know, I hope my singles that I wrote win. But they probably won't. Donovan's probably will. You know, there's no way to tell. But
is the next album, is that going to be Bloodline? Because I saw you just put out the song Bloodline. Is that what the album be?
The EP will probably be called Bloodline, and that'll be 5 songs. But then the full record will follow. Right now we have 15 recorded. I think it'll probably end up being closer to 18 when it's said and done. But I don't know if it probably won't be called Bloodline.
Okay.
I'll probably find a different title. It might just be LM. I don't know.
Might as well.
Yeah.
So when do you expect that to come out? The entire...
I'm hoping by July, because I want to start working on a new record after that. I already have kind of some other irons in the fire for new stuff, so
that's really exciting.
I hope so, man. It's just once you start working on a project, you kind of feel like you've sunk the production. You know, okay, I know we're using this drummer. I know what sound we're going for sonically. It's like, okay, boom, I got that. I can put all that stuff in this can. Now I'm working on the next thing. It's just, I think you have to be that way a little bit, you know. The second you stop thinking about what's next, I feel like you're kind of like fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, you're already behind.
Yeah.
So, John and I like to listen, I would say, if there's an innovator's curve, right? That's the people, the early adopters. You've got the laggards, the other side of it. I would say we're probably more on the early adopter side. We like listening to new artists, trying to find what's coming up next. Do you have any guys, in your opinion, that we should be looking out for that you think are got some good stuff coming?
Artist-wise, songwriter-wise? Like what?
Either way.
Either way, yeah.
One of my favorite guys right now is Colton Venner.
Okay.
I think he's one of the, I've recorded Albuquerque he wrote. He wrote a song on the upcoming record called Last Hometown. Him and Donovan wrote it together. But Colton Venner is just absolutely, I think, going to be the next big songwriter in town. Randy Montana, I always love everything he does. And he's been one of my best buddies since like 2010. He had an artist career for a while. I don't know if you know any of his stuff. He had a really cool few singles that dropped on Universal, and then he put an independent record out. God, I love that Lacey K. Booth thing, that Dive Bar song.
Yeah.
God, that's so
It
good.
is such a good song.
Yeah. Jenna Paulette's badass. I love her. Everything she puts out's pretty fire. I mean, there's other genre stuff that I can think about, but as far as in the country landscape, those come to mind. I mean, I love everything Lainey Wilson's doing. Obviously, she doesn't need any promo.
Yeah.
You know,
she's doing just fine.
She's doing just fine. Yeah, there's so many really good ones right now that I love their stuff, and I still love Wade Bowen. Every time Wade Bowen puts a record out, I'm like, dude, there's no skips on this.
No.
You know?
Is your wife an artist too?
Yeah, she is.
So what's that like?
It's great. She's a great songwriter. Okay. So we write together a lot, and she's honestly, I think she's a better songwriter than I am, and she's a much better singer than I am. So we've been writing. She comes in here. We write once or twice a week together, and we'll write on Zoom with Nashville writers and stuff, and everyone's always like, what are you doing? You know, like, she needs a publishing deal worse than you do,
Yeah.
She's really good. And we have a duo project coming out. I think we're trying to put our first single out in July 31st, which is our 13th anniversary.
Oh,
That is really cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun, man. I really want that to take off. My golden dream would be to be like playing guitar in a band with her and singing background vocals, but we'll see what happens. So
It'd be so cool for like husband-wife combination blow up. You guys are touring together and you guys are like together.
That's the ultimate dream. Yeah, she's my best buddy. So like we're half the time when I get to the studio to write songs, like it might have half been stolen from a conversation we had that morning, And it's more fun to write songs with her because it's not the same old run-of-the-mill like country song. Like it's something different with a new perspective, and she's influenced a lot of my writing. So yeah, she's great.
Do you feel like your kids are showing any signs of being musically gifted?
Maybe a little bit. My daughter, she's always writing songs.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow. You
Yeah.
started early.
Yeah. So she's told me forever she wants to be either an actress or a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And she's writing songs a ton. But the other day, so Brunen's 2 doors down. It's like a country restaurant.
Okay.
Biscuits and gravy.
Oh, nice.
She told me last week that she just wants to work at Brunen's. So that's cool with me too.
Yeah.
So she's like, I don't think I want to be a singer anymore. I think I just want to work at Brunen's. She's 8.
Yeah.
You know what? I love that. Let's do that. So
It's going to be really interesting to see where she actually ends up.
right. No, she's good. She'll probably be better than me and Joe both. So
Well, that's the hope as a parent.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah.
As we start to wrap up, John, do you have anything?
My main question coming in was, so you throw out an album, right? And we kind of hit on this, I guess, a little bit, but, do you have 1 or 2 songs that you're like, okay, these are bangers, or is it the whole thing's bangers, and then it's like 1 or 2 just, like, pop off? You know what I mean?
My goal has always been, so we've, like talked about, like for me, I feel like my biggest strength is in cutting records. Like all the other things you got to do, the one thing I have to do is make records. And I feel like that's the one thing that I feel the most confident at. And so when I go to make a record, I don't want any skips. I don't want there to be any song that you go, okay, that was good try.
Yeah.
I want every song to be hit you in the face. And I don't even try to go like, well, we've already done this vibe, let's do a different one. It's like, did that vibe work great? Cool, do 3 more of those. It doesn't bother me to kind of step and repeat if I find something I love because I just can't get enough of it because the song's only 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not enough for me. Like if I listen to one of my favorite bands and then 3.5 minutes go by, I'm like, I just want to hear that song again. What if they made 3 more of those? So I'm trying to make the best record possible. So now 1 or 2 songs I feel like get you started and it gets your motor running a little bit. But I definitely don't want to bank a record on 1 or 2 songs. I want every single one to be great. And that goes back to finding outside songs. It's like, yeah, you can try to write all of them, but what if your buddy wrote one that beats your songs? Add it in. Put the best group together,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How does duration of a song affect it? Like, are you always trying to get to that 3.5 minute mark? Does it show that like a 2-minute song will perform worse than that, or a 5-minute song performs worse? Like, how's that factor in?
Man, I'm so influenced by 3-minute pop songs like Tom Petty, John Mellencamp, Elton John.
Right.
Like, I love Southern rock, man. I love the Allman Brothers. I love Leonard Skinner. I love, Charlie Daniels. And when they did that thing in the 70s where we're going to do an 8-minute song or whatever, that's cool. Like, I will listen to the Allman Brothers all day long. I love it. But for me, like, you can wrap up all your thoughts and all your melodies and all your vibe in about 3 to 3.5 minutes and then move on to the next thing. I mean, if it goes any longer than that, it kind of feels like you're showing off, Like, what's that Dickie Betts song I love so much? The Allman Brothers. Well, you know what song I'm talking about, right? It's all instrumental.
I don't.
Okay, sorry. That could go on for 15 minutes and I'd be all ears. But like other than that, man, there's not much out there that you can do much past 3.5 minutes.
Well, we need like a 5-minute guitar solo at the end. That's what we need you to do.
Right. Yeah, I only play about 2 or 3 notes in my guitar solos, so you'd get real tired and quit.
That's what we needed to do. Next time, we're going to have you play live. That's where.
Oh yeah. Well, we got about 15 guitars in here. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
Your setup here is really cool. I wanted
Thank
to
you.
mention that. Like, this is super fun.
Thanks. Sorry, it's a mess back there. I know you went to the bathroom. I should have cleaned up.
No, you're good, man. It's real.
There's guitars stacked on the sink, and
Yeah. This is the life, though. Like, this is what you do.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Okay. So as we start to wrap up, where can people find you if they want to listen, connect, reach out to you?
Yeah, so it's loganmize.com, M-I-Z-E. And then I think my Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. TikTok's Logan Mize 85. Hopefully that gets banned soon, so I don't have to post TikToks anymore. I heard it was going to. I don't know.
They're working on it.
Yeah. Did Trump get arrested today? I don't know. I heard that was
Not
It's
yet.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's tomorrow. God, politics in America are fucked. I don't know. Anyway, you let me have a scotch. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, man, it's all the Logan Mize. I think TikTok's the only one that has numbers in it, but yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So my final question for you is, looking back on this wild journey that you've been on, if you could go back to your 18, 19, 20-year-old self, what advice would you offer to him?
Just be authentic, be yourself, tell the truth. I don't know. I love the fact, the one thing that I'll always go back to is like I always had like a very adventurous spirit. Maybe spend less time drinking beer and more time like running. Maybe drink more water. But like, dude, as far as the adventure and the belief and that there's something you can do if you put your mind to it, man, I feel like I got lucky enough to figure that out at an early age. And I've kind of landed in a spot where like it kind of worked out in a really cool way. So just believe in yourself, like there's no right or wrong way to do anything as long as you're treating people well. Treat everybody with respect, whether they deserve it or not. It'll come back to you. Just be nice and believe in yourself and give yourself a break from time to time. If you're waking up and doing the work every day, and you're not sloughing off and making bad decisions every night, like, dude, where can you go wrong? Wake up every day and just go for it. Swing for the fence all day, every day.
Logan, your story is inspiring. I really appreciate you sharing it with us.
Oh, dude, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Awesome. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap on that one. That was a fireball.